Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ranking Member Smith, and thanks to both of our witnesses today for your testimony. Really appreciate the thoroughness and thoughtfulness of your remarks. I've become a very big believer that we can either invest in the military that we have today, or we can invest in the military that we need in order to defeat China tomorrow. And I do not think that we can do both of those things. And I think that I identified very strongly, General Keane, with some of your statements earlier that challenged myself and my colleagues here, that we have a number of legacy systems in our military that are no longer relevant to the future fight that America could be forced to face one day. And I don't want to press you, but would you be willing to share what some of those systems are across our different services, in your opinion?
Yes. Well, certainly, bringing the service chiefs in here and letting them deal with that, they all have, their own list of what that really means. But some of these systems that we have today are just, in terms of their capabilities, are not relevant to, the war that we would be involved in if we do go to war with China. So the reality is that when it comes to legacy systems, we have old bombers, and obviously we have a new bomber that's coming, but it's going to take so long to get there. I think we have to take a hard look at our surface fleet. I'm not a naval expert, but I do know how vulnerable that surface fleet is. We need a certain amount of ships, obviously, as a global power, to make certain that the navigation routes that help sustain a global economy through peaceful engagement, we need a number of ships to be able to do that. The Navy believes they're about 70 short in doing that, but also we have to take a hard look at the ships we do have in terms of the quality of those ships and how relevant are they for the future. Though I think all the services owe you a rundown on exactly the question that you just asked, and with some degree of specificity about those systems. There's always a reluctance to deal with this in a public forum because then, for sure, something is going to happen that's negative to them, and the money will never go to the area that they want it to go to. The Army itself, land forces, we've seen the Marines make some fundamental changes, and I know the Army is attempting to make fundamental changes to help deal with the war in China, and they're developing multi-domain organizations that have offensive and defensive missiles associated with them. There's a recognition that when we look at the Indo-Pacific and think of it as an air and maritime theater, much of the land that surrounds the navigation routes are actually key terrain. And our World War II leaders understood that rather dramatically and used it as such. And we have to recognize that we can take advantage of that key terrain which accesses the navigation routes that the Chinese would be using. And we have to change the capabilities out there as well. We obviously don't need tanks out there because that kind of war is not going to be fought. It's an air and maritime theater enabled by land power, as war in Europe is a land power theater enabled by air power. But we have to make those kinds of fundamental changes in the Pacific region by land forces to assist in the air and maritime theater. But the best answer, I think, would come from the chiefs themselves in terms of what specific programs that they really have on their chopping block, and seek your support to make the kind of changes that they need to do. I mean, they're all underwater when it comes to the budget. They have major readiness issues. The Army hasn't been at the size it's at since prior to World War II. The Air Force is sitting at a 40-year low, and I already mentioned the Navy's about 70 ships short. So they need to increase in size as well as capability to be able to meet the objectives that they have in dealing with the threat.
Gentleman's time's expired, and the chair now moves to another North Carolinian, Mr. Davis.